United failed at Old Trafford. Liverpool were tested at Brentford and City passed with flying colours at the Bridge. It's the Rose-Tinted Football Podcast. So where do you want to start? Don't say Old Trafford. I don't want to do Old Trafford.
I'd say for the next 10 minutes I'm just going to stay quiet, sit back and smile while you absolutely roast your own team. I think Old Trafford's the best place to start.
Oh, God. Yeah, we'll start there. Another calamitous performance at Old Trafford. Like this whole cycle with Ole, you know, where we're brilliant for 7 or 8 games and then we go into a downturn where we're absolutely desperate for 7 or 8 games. Like it started already. It started a bit earlier than normal, results wise.
Performance wise.
Oh yeah, outside of the Leeds game, we haven't played well. We haven't played well at all. Even last week, Newcastle had their chances. Like, it was a 4-1 win, but Newcastle had chances. Again, today, it's not so much the quantity, it's the quality of chances that were given away. Like, Villa had clear-cut opportunities. Matty Cash should have scored early on. Ollie Watkins could have had a couple. Like, we're getting torn apart by, no disrespect to them, but we're getting torn apart by Aston Villa at home. Like, that's not going to happen. And we seem to have an over-reliance that anytime we've had any good results, it's because Bruno's pulled it out of the bag, Ronaldo scored one, or Pogba's got an important goal or something. Like, the big players have bailed us out, basically. And there doesn't seem to be any coherent thought from the bench. Like, even there, going back to the young boys game a couple of weeks ago, like, you had the three of them. You had the three stooges there all talking about what's going to be done after the sending off. Like, it shouldn't take three of them to...
We never actually talked about the young boys game, and I mean, let's call a spade a spade. United, with that team, potentially could have 2 players sent off in that match and should still be able to see out that game. Never mind have 1 player sent off and be under the cosh for over an hour. I mean, that... I know if you know, Liverpool were sporting the players that United are at the moment and played that game and got, you know, hammered like that, that in itself is disgraceful. Like, we lauded Chelsea over their second half display against Liverpool, and as much as I personally think that Chelsea should be better, that they shouldn't have had to sit back, at the end of the day they did, and they frustrated Liverpool.
Well, that's Anfield,
and that's Anfield, yeah, of
like,
course.
That's not.
And I'm not giving out about them. I mean, that was their decision. They did it.
It was the right decision, though, because they obviously felt that this was the best course of action to get a result, to get any sort of result out of it.
And United at this time, when they got a man sent off, were a goal up. If you have to go, all 10 men behind the ball, see out the result, get your 3 points.
I said at the start of the season, after the signings we've made, he has no excuses, and he does have no excuses anymore. The lack of a central defensive midfielder, that doesn't count. He doesn't. His in-game management is terrible.
Yeah,
he's not too bad tactics wise. He's not too bad when it comes to setting up against the bigger teams, because we've ended up getting some good results, notably against Man City. We've had one or two against Liverpool under him. Like, we've had a few against Chelsea. Like, he is capable of setting up a team. But when that initial plan fails, there's no plan B. Or there's no quick thinking into a plan B. He seems to sit around for minutes upon minutes upon minutes trying to think, asking Carrick what he thinks, asking Man McKenna what he thinks. It's it's like it's getting to the stage now where he's holding back the players that we have now. If you look at the squad that we have now, like, are you telling me that we would struggle so much if any other top manager had him? Like, and I'm not talking about Guardiola or Klopp or anybody like that. Even Rafa at Everton. Like, do you think if Rafa had those type of players, whatever you want to say about his management style, we wouldn't be struggling the way we are. And like, that's now 3 defeats in 4 games, and like, we could turn around starting this week in the Champions League. We could turn around and go on a run of 15 games unbeaten and win 11 or 12 of them. But that's going to be again quickly followed by a terrible result against a lesser team, and that sends another spiral into 4 or 5 games where we're barely picking up anything. And it can't be done anymore. It just can't be. Like, the defence is completely exposed. Fred is there with Cleberson and Jemba squared as one of the worst midfielders that we've ever had. But at the same time, you can't label all this on him. Like, we're constantly looking to counter-attack teams, but at the same time, we're somehow leaving the defence completely exposed.
You also have to bring into, we haven't really talked about it because they haven't been exposed as much, but I mean, Wan-Bissaka a lot of the time looks as good as he does because he's covering up his own mistake. His recovery is excellent, but he's recovering a lot of the time his own mistakes. Not a lot of time, excuse me, but there are large amount of times over a season where he's recovering his own mistake, and for me that's not good defending. It's good, but it shouldn't be necessary. Maguire is just, he doesn't make it easy for himself. No. Is what it seems. Like, it seems
he thinks the problem with Maguire thinks he's better than he actually is.
Exactly.
So it's not like I do take your point with Wan-Bissaka. Yeah. He does make mistakes, but he's very good at covering up. Yeah. But I think that's down to his limitations going forward. He's trying to do too much because he's been asked to do too much that he's not comfortable with. But with Maguire thinks he's Beckenbauer. And he thinks he can just waltz out of defence and he can do all of this, but he can't. And most of the time when Maguire gets caught out is like, Maguire thinks, the back pass to De Gea, that,
goodness me,
yeah, like, that comes from the fact that he thinks he's too good to launch that into Rosette.
Yeah. Do you know what it's the opposite? You know the way you get players who come in and they have this massive price tag, and they don't play well, and it's like, the price tag is weighing down on them. I think Maguire's the exact opposite. He's just like, this price tag means that I can be Ronaldinho.
Yeah. Look at me, I'm
from centre back.
I'm 80 million. Look at me. Van Dijk was only 70. He ain't got shit on me.
But, I mean, that back pass, as you said, it was criminal. Oh my god.
But like, my biggest problem is you look at City. You look at any game City play. You know how they're trying to play.
Yeah.
You look at Liverpool. You know how they're trying to play. Look at Chelsea, same thing. Even going down. Even look at, and now I've given out about them more than probably any other team. But look at Arsenal. You can see what Arteta is trying to do. He just doesn't have the players capable of it. But you can see his idea. Tell me now what Solskjaer's idea at United is. What is the style of play? What is our philosophy, so to speak, other than we'll get you on the counter-attack?
Well, I think it's the way that I play FIFA. Get all the highest rated players you have on your team and make sure you get them all into the starting 11.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And like, he doesn't know He doesn't know how to make the most of all these players. And I think it could be a case, and I think a lot of the players, well, Ronaldo especially, these signings are made so that what happened before the Liverpool game last year with the protests doesn't happen again. It's the Glazers buying these players so they can turn around and go, look at us, we're buying these big star players and making the team better. Don't blame us. And Solskjaer has no idea, because he doesn't have the capabilities to figure out, right, how do I play? How do I put Pogba into that team alongside Bruno? How do I put Greenwood in with Ronaldo? And when Rashford returned, like, that's another thing. Rashford's going to return. What's going to happen then? He's currently playing Pogba on the left-hand side. What happens then? Like, you could easily say with the Pogba thing, well, when Rashford comes back, you'll drop Pogba in alongside either McTominay or Fred. That's already proven not to work. And also, with Pogba, he can't have... He needs the Kante. He needs somebody who's all action beside him. And United don't have that. So what is he going to do? Like, he doesn't know what he's going to do. And again, that's going back to him. He's now the one that's holding the team back.
What's surprising for me is that you look at the likes of Chelsea, City and Liverpool, who have one player, one very good defensive midfielder, and look at them. I mean, it allows the rest of the team to flourish, where in United's case, Ole doesn't have the quality in defensive midfielder, but by playing two lads in that position, he still can't get the defensive side of it wrong, and that doesn't really make sense to me. It's like surely he should be lacking in attack because he's had to take one of those out to cover in centre midfield, and that should shore up a bit more defensively. But all he's doing is taking away from the attack while simultaneously not giving anything to the defensive midfield.
Yeah.
Which is mind-boggling. I don't understand how that works.
Yeah, it's getting frustrating now, because it's the same thing over and over again, and you're now also getting to the stage now of, he's been there for so long now, it's not settling in. You can't say that, he can't turn around and say he needs to get his own team now, because he has his own team now, but he still doesn't know how to do it. He still doesn't know. And even like attacking wise, like,
you'd have to have some big cojones to come out and say, well, I still don't have my own team.
Yeah.
With the team he has at his disposal.
Well, look, he's already looking for excuses here and there. Like, even just to talk about the Villa goal, like, to give Villa credit, they played fantastically well.
Goodness me.
They played fantastically well.
I was getting flashbacks from when Liverpool got beaten by them badly.
Yeah,
they were that good. They were cutting through United's defence, like they did on that day, cut through Liverpool's defence.
It was reminiscent of that game, but United played into their hands, and again there was nothing from the bench to say how we're going to change this, and his answer was to bring Cavani on for McTominay, which just didn't really make sense formation-wise, because like Ronaldo can't play on the wing anymore because he doesn't have he's too old. Like he's 36 now. But
again, how I play FIFA.
Yeah,
take off your defensive guy who's not going to do anything for you. You're 1-0 down, or you're not playing well and you need to get your goals, so get a striker on, sacrifice somewhere else, and it just didn't work for him. Yeah.
Well, like going on to the goal itself, like I know the Ollie Watkins was having a wee shoving match with De Gea as the corner was coming in. Look, you can argue that he was interfering with play. I do believe that he was interfering with play, but at the same time, it's a strange one, because I ranted and raved last week about decisions going against us. I seen that and I was like, yeah, he probably was interfering. It probably should be offside. It disallowed the goal. But my anger isn't at the officials or at any Villa players, or it's down to the mismanagement of United, and the lack of leadership that seems to be there. It just seems to be the place where, and we've been like this since Fergie left, it seems to be the place where, you can go to get a quick buck, you'll get big money, the fans will rant and rave, there's a little bit of pressure there, but overall the Glazers will keep paying you your wage and they'll just play the status quo,
You haven't won at Old Trafford since 1954. Step on up.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's ridiculous. It's I'm losing it. I don't even want to bother talking about the penalty. You can't
understand why.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to give out about Bruno. He's been absolutely magnificent since he joined us. His penalty record's been second to none. It was just one of those penalties, but again, Solskjaer's crying about the goalkeeper and the way Villa crowded around. Come on. He was part of a team that had Roy Keane and Jaap Stam nearly physically assault a referee for the audacity of giving a penalty at Old Trafford. There's far too many excuses coming in for him now. Every time a result goes against, there's an excuse for it. There's this, there's that. He never criticises the players.
Yeah.
He never...
Or himself.
Yeah, well, if he's not going to criticise the players, he's definitely not going to criticise himself.
You
have the Jose Mourinho... Well, the old Jose Mourinho, who, he would deflect all attention. That first Chelsea run, he deflected every bit of attention away from his players.
Yeah.
But with Solskjaer, it's just, weren't we unlucky and weren't this or weren't that? It's just, it's not good enough. You have to remember where you are and what the size of the club is. Excuses don't count. At this level of football, excuses don't count. Look at Man City in their kind of rise towards Guardiola.
Yeah.
They had two managers who won the league. They failed in their following season and were sacked because excuses don't count at that level of football.
Yeah. I mean, to come off Ole and go to the penalty, and as much as I'd love to, not in a slagging way, but from your point of view of the decision for Bruno to take the penalty, have you heard anything specific as to, with Ronaldo on the pitch, why he was the one? Was it just because he had been the penalty taker, so they stuck with him?
From what I've heard, it's been agreed that Bruno was to stick at penalties because it was looked at, when you've scored 22 of your 23 penalties and the one that you've missed, you scored the rebound from.
Yeah.
You can't turn around. People talk about Ronaldo's record. Bruno's is far superior than Ronaldo's record.
Is it? Yeah.
Over the same period of time. So it was kind of agreed whether it was well-meaning or just to look good perception-wise. I don't know.
Because that was the only thing that was strange. I thought it was strange that Bruno was taking it while, at first I thought, Ronaldo must be off. And then I heard Ronaldo was still on the pitch and I was like, oh, goodness. Do you think maybe Ronaldo being the pitch might have gotten inside his head a wee bit?
It could have. Well, I think if anybody got in his head, it was Javi Martinez. Part of me appreciates the shithousery of it all.
Yeah.
But
because it's against you, it's the worst thing in the world.
But, well, to be honest, I didn't mind it so much. But when I seen his reaction to the penalty being missed, he celebrated like he saved the fucking thing.
Yeah.
That, I was like, you can talk about mind games, you can talk about getting into your head, but you had minimal to do with the missing of that penalty.
Yeah.
So that just really, I didn't become a fan of his after that. But look, United are in trouble. They have problems everywhere. That's 2 games in the bounce without scoring, 3 defeats in 4 games. It's a worrying time for them. really worrying time for them. Although for a team who don't have too many worries are Brentford.
Oh, I mean, goodness me. I mean,
What a
the doom and gloom of talking about United to the fantastic Liverpool got a point away to Brentford, because listen, I'm joking a wee bit there. It was at the final whistle, I was disappointed not to have gotten all 3 points. But in saying that, Brentford are gonna take some scalps this season. Going by not only that Liverpool match, but previous games, and obviously what they did to Arsenal. Yeah. In most of their games so far, even if they've not taken full points, they've made a good account of themselves.
Yeah.
So by what's happened up to now, they're going to take some scalps. I mean, Liverpool didn't help themselves. Liverpool were uncharacteristically.
Massively sloppy at the back.
For Jimmy Traore's playing at the back.
Oh, they were all over the place.
Yeah,
even at times Van Dijk looked a bit all at sea. Yeah. Like even that tackle late on, which was a great tackle, the one on Tony.
Yeah,
it was great recovery from Van Dijk. But even at that, he looked a bit all at sea leading up to it. I
don't think even in matches where Liverpool have lost, I don't think I've seen, maybe it just wasn't the camera showing it, but Van Dijk giving as many glaring looks towards other Liverpool players as he didn't, because I think he recognised that we're all at sea here today. We're not, as much as, look, Liverpool played well enough to win the game. They did. I mean, as much as they were all over the place, they had chance after chance after chance. They had a couple of gillet edge chances which they should have put away. By the time that
one could argue that Brentford
had a couple themselves.
This is what I text you during the game or just after the game, saying that I was happy Liverpool didn't sneak it late on. Not so much that Liverpool didn't win, but I felt like Brentford didn't deserve to lose the game, because I just felt that neither side deserved to lose that game. Like, a draw was the fair result at the end of the day.
Teams,
because both teams can argue that we should have.
We were good enough to win it.
Yeah,
we had enough chances to win
it.
You're
like to put. You love your stats. Brentford had a higher XG in that game. It was 2.66 to 2.37. So they do have a legitimate claim to say. But a draw definitely I think was fair.
I mean, up front, they're like Burnley in the way that they're bullying while having a lot more pace and a lot more skill than Burnley's front pairing or front 2 or 3 players.
They were very close together. Those two strikers were they were nearly on top of each other, and I think that's what Liverpool couldn't cope with, is because they were so close that they didn't know what to do.
Yeah. I mean, at one point towards the end of the second half, Matip won a header to the point where the commentator went, "Oh, Matip's just won a header," because he had lost out, I think, on the previous 5 or 6 attempts. I mean, who's Ivan Toney's partner? Can't think of his name. Mbale or God, I can't think of it. But he was fantastic in the air. And even Ivan Toney a couple of times against Van Dijk. Van Dijk won most of the battles, but your man made a nuisance of himself.
Yeah,
an absolute nuisance of himself. They're a great pair, and they have a great link between them. If one of them had won something, and the other one's run, they found them.
Yeah,
without.
But they look like, in general, they look like a very intelligent team.
Yeah.
Like even the first goal for Brentford was so well worked that Liverpool hadn't a clue what they were trying to do. Like the Liverpool defender, they didn't know where to go, who to mark. It completely caused chaos in that defence.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were very good. And I mean, Liverpool were good in themselves. As much as defensively they were a wee bit all over the place, they were very good going forward as well. They created play. Like, it was just one of those games. It was an amazing game. I mean, anybody pundit wise that I've listened to over the weekend, they've all said it about the look, what a game. Really thoroughly enjoyed that game. You know, as an outsider, it seems like from end to end it was fantastic. As Liverpool supporter, obviously not so much like in Brentford's attacking, but I mean, credit where credit's due, they were brilliant. But yeah, I mean, Jota got himself on the score sheet again.
What a great what would you call it? Maybe a facer. Would that be it? I wouldn't. It's not a header. It was square slap bang in the middle of his face.
But nobody cares.
No.
It could have come off his, for all I care.
Well, I tell you what, it wouldn't have come off his foot because he can't score with his feet.
Oh, but let's call a spade a spade. Fair play. Like Jota, at the amount of headers that Jota scored since he's arrived at Liverpool, that even this season, the one that he scored against Burnley as well.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the smaller men on the pitch. Definitely he'd be in
5'5" or 5'6" or something like that.
He's not fucking massive, but he wins headers in areas that he has absolutely no right. Like if Liverpool conceded that goal, I would be livid.
I think with him, it's his reading of cross. Because if you look at like you mentioned, the Burnley goal and then the goal at the weekend,
yeah,
he doesn't jump very high either. He makes his run dependent on where the cross is coming in. Now, obviously, if a big 6'4" defender gets in his way, there's very little he can do.
Exactly.
But he manages to find that pocket of space just behind the defender.
Yeah.
And that means that the ball, and especially when it's coming from the right-hand side from Trent, like, he's going to put it on the sixpence.
Exactly. So, fantastic. And I mean, the he had a miss last week that was, I mean, straight out of the book of, you know, Rio Ferdinand had one on the line. You have a couple of players, Canu had one on the line. You know, those kind of chances that you're like, it's harder to miss than it is to score. The one in this match, though, I mean, as much as you think, right, Jota should have scored that. What a save by the keeper.
I can't...
He pulled out a couple of them.
He was magnificent.
He was brilliant. I mean, the goals generally, he had not much of a chance.
He had very little chance. He had very little chance with the Jota header.
Yeah.
He had no chance with
got a good touch on the Salah goal.
Yeah, like, but at the same time, like, it'd be hard to say that, you know, he should have saved that.
And
you know,
the deflection done him out of the Jones goal.
The deflection, he actually had that shot covered.
It looked like he had it covered, yeah.
So, like, he did. He had one of those games that I suppose goalkeepers dream of having.
Yeah.
And then in my latest autocorrect, Sarah was far too casual in front of goal. That the one that he missed where he chipped up. Yeah, like that. There's no need for him to do that. Like, it's not, that's his, if that's his only option, fair enough, that's your only option. But he had so much time to just take even another touch and slot it past the goalkeeper, take around the goalkeeper if he had to. But it was just far too casual. Now, if I was Jurgen Klopp, I would have been going mental. It's alright if you do that if that was for 4-0, that's fair enough. But you were only leading by a goal. It was only 3-2 at that stage. It was far too casual. It just looked like it was just far too. It was like, you know, yeah, sure, I'm just going to score another one. Like it.
Yeah. I find that kind of judgment slightly too harsh, from the respect that he's in form. He's scoring goals. Like any top striker, you look at Ronaldo, you look at Rooney, you look at Henry, you look at Shearer, they make a decision, momentary decision at the time, to go to the left, go to the right, go through the keeper's legs, clip it over his head, smash it, whatever the decision may be. I think if you have a striker that's in form, whatever decision he makes, do you know what? Even if he doesn't score, like if Salah doesn't get a goal in that game, I'm not saying you shouldn't have done that, unless it's a ridiculous decision. But I'm not. I find it very hard to say you shouldn't have done that, because if you're in form, little things that you do like that generally come off for you. Whereas I would wholeheartedly agree with you if he hadn't scored in his last 3 or 4 games, if he had missed a lot of couple of easy chances where he had tried stuff like that, and it got to the point where he missed another one, and you're like, will you just try and slot it past the keeper nice and easy? And so I agree with where you're coming from, but in top striker fashion, I think it's overly harsh. Because they put away those chances week after week. Salah's put away chances like that himself at times in his 100 goal Premier League haul for Liverpool. I mean, he's if you look at how fast any player, he's 4th in the list of how fast you get to 100 goals for one Premier League club. He's 4th on that list. I mean, he's up there with Shearer, Thierry Henry.
Ian Wright was up there as well.
Ian Wright was up there as well. So
Aguero,
that's right. They were the ones ahead of him. I think Ian Wright might have been slightly after him. So I mean, he's in good company of all out and out strikers. Never mind lads that predominantly would play from the wing. Although Thierry Henry arguably could be like Salah in that way, would play predominantly from the wing. So I mean, if you're putting away that many chances, listen. If you're not in a goal drought, I'm not going to argue with someone making a decision that doesn't come off.
And you can see Chris is so excited about talking about Salah that his chair cannot stop squeaking.
It's just the way I gestate.
Salivating here, people. Salivating. Just don't get it on the microphone. Yeah, well, it I suppose it was, as I said before, it was a fair result. A fair result being a draw. And I suppose it was a fair result, City winning at the Bridge.
Oh, more than a fair result. If anything, it was unfair on City that they only got 1 goal for all of the play that they had.
It was a bit like the game at Anfield after the sending off. Chelsea very much parked the bus in this game. Like the first half especially, they were so negative. They were like when I seen Werner was playing alongside with Lukaku, I was thinking, oh, this is an interesting, it looks like he's
big man, small man.
Yeah, but it looks like it's a positive. It's a positive for Chelsea, but they just sat back. They just refused to. They refused to leave their own half nearly. Like they were happy for City just to play it around in midfield, and they'd have enough men back to deal with anything that comes after it.
Do you think that decision affected the gameplay? And not to pile on Werner, I mean, God knows that he's had enough critics in the last year, but in a sense that you take someone out of your very good midfield to put an extra man up front, and all of a sudden City are running rampant all over you. Do you think if he decided against playing Werner and maybe having one of his extra guys in midfield, people who could join the attack if it was needed, but obviously if City are playing as well as they did in this match, they may not have overrun them as much, and maybe Chelsea might have been able to get out a bit more?
Yeah, I think you're right. The lack of a midfield for Chelsea is what really caused it, because City seem to have an awful lot of time on the ball.
Yeah.
And like I said, Chelsea seem to be happy for them to have a lot of the ball and then have enough men back to deal with any potential, crosses or passes into the penalty area. And that seemed to be it. And like, to be fair to them, they dealt with most of them very well. Nearly every pass that came into the penalty area was dealt with by Chelsea. So it took Cancelo to have a shot for it to fall to Jesus to score. I suppose it's that rub of the green as well at the same time
and
you need.
And that's exactly what it was. I mean, it was rub of the green. I listened to a couple of pundits that were saying, Jesus, his movement for that was brilliant, but I don't think it was. His movement brought him into a crowd of players, and only for when he did hit it, it took a deflection that took it goalward. I mean, most of the time, that exact move results in you hitting the ball off 3 players, and it goes back outside the box.
That goal, it it had the initial. How many times have you seen, you know, a fullback hit a shot from that position? It hit one of his own player and just fly out for a throw or out for a goal kick or whatever. You know, it just sat right at his feet, and it wasn't. It had nothing to do with Jesus. Jesus didn't purposely control that ball. It just fell there, and he had quick enough feet to get it out and get a shot away. And again, that deflection, it looks like that was going straight down Mendy's throat.
Yeah.
And then the deflection
or
takes
before
it
the
into
deflection, yeah.
Yeah, and then the deflection takes...
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. But, I mean, deflection or no deflection, I mean, had City come out of that game at a 0-0, they would have been robbed.
They would have been raged. That would have been a perfect example of parking the bus if that had have happened.
Yeah.
Like, Chelsea had 0 shots on target. Like, that's one thing to say. Like, if that was at the Etihad or earlier in the year at Anfield, you know, that's one thing. Things like that can happen. You go to different... That's at home.
Yeah.
You have 0 shots on target at home. It just, I suppose, it shows the level of dominance that City had over Chelsea. And another team who was dominant was, I can't believe I'm saying this, Arsenal. They had a dominant win.
I was looking forward to you talking about Arsenal.
Look,
yeah, they were again value for the money for the win. I mean, they deserved every bit of it. To the point where Nuno came out after the game and slated his own team for not following his vision or not being good enough to follow his vision. Now, it's early days for him. I don't think he's a bad manager. Does he necessarily have the players that he would want? I don't think any manager comes into Tottenham is going to say they have the players that they want, or even they have half of squad of the players that they want, because you know,
he has to deal with a player who doesn't even want to be there.
Yeah.
And I think he's as big a part of the problem as anything else as Harry Kane.
And we won't focus on Harry Kane too much this week, because we have over the last couple of weeks, but it was slightly better a performance while being still lacking massively in what Harry Kane is all about.
Yeah. Like he again looked disinterested. He put in a little bit of effort this week, but like that's not the Harry Kane of the last 4, 5, 6 years. Like he obviously doesn't want to be there, so he's just hoping that he'll see out the season. I wonder if Nuno will see out the season, because like I agree with you, he's not a bad manager, and what he done at Wolves was fantastic. But like he wasn't Spurs' first choice. It wasn't even their second or third choice. He was way down that list. And it's kind of showing in some of the results now, and actually it's been shown in their play the entire season, because they won the first 3 games. They should have lost their first 3. Like, you could easily say that Spurs should be down there with Norwich on duck egg.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I mean, they got their goal in each of those matches and sat back and just soaked up pressure and soaked up pressure and soaked up pressure.
Yes,
and not in a good way.
No, but like it's looking like now they got the luck in the first 3 games that they sat back, defended, and managed to sneak a goal. But now the clean sheets have gone and the goals have gone. That, you know, things are looking very worrying for and it seemed disjointed as well. Like Son at one stage in the first half, he went on a run and he played a ball into I think he played a 1-2 with the fullback, and he flicked it into Dele Alli. And Dele Alli was in the middle of the penalty area, free, and he just stood there. He didn't pass the ball, he didn't move with the ball, he just stood there until one of the Arsenal players came along and just tipped it past him and took it away. It's I worry for Tottenham now. This could end up being it's going from a long season to a horrid season. And they could be in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, and like we said, Arsenal. I mean, we've spent the whole time talking about Spurs. When, in fairness to Arsenal,
I've already given them credit. That's all they're getting.
Aubameyang had his first game of the season that he fancied playing in, and he played well. Emile Smith Rowe played very, very well as well. He's a young player. He seems like a good prospect. I think he gets snowed under a wee bit in the games that they've played really badly. I don't particularly think that he's massively at fault. I think the older, the more senior players in the squad are the ones at fault most of the time.
Yeah,
when it comes to those games,
he's too young to be able to drag a team along with him. He could end up being a player that drags Arsenal along when they're not playing well, but at the minute he's far too young for that. But yeah, as you were going to say, Saka, he had a wonderful game, absolute wonderful game. He looks like if he matures rightly,
and gets away from Arsenal,
that's number one. Don't go to Spurs though. He looks like if he matures properly, he looks like he could be a fantastic player for Arsenal. It's his directness, and as you say, no fear. He doesn't fear any defender in the league. He just runs at them, and nobody can deal with that sort of directness. If you have a really quick player who will run at you directly, he's not so much like it, but it's kind of a little similar to Traore at Wolves, in that he's so direct that players can't handle it. But where Traore has his strength and size, Saka has his skill.
Yeah, and a wee bit of guile.
Yeah. Theo Walcott with a brain.
Yeah, no, you're probably not wrong there. Yeah, true.
Yeah, so again, it was a good result for Arsenal. If they wanted, they could have easily had 5 or 6 before half time. Easily had it. And I think in the second half, I think they knew the game was over, so they weren't going to push it too much, which is understandable. If you've had the start of the season that Arsenal have had, it's understandable to go, right, we're 3-0 up against our biggest rivals. Let's just see this game out. And
in fairness as well, I find it funny to even say it, but Ramsdale was probably one of, for the few chances that Tottenham had, Ramsdale dealt with each and every one of them very, very well.
Great save from, was it Lucas Moura?
Yeah.
I think that looked like it was looping over and he just tipped it.
Oh, unbelievable save. And even for he was incredibly unlucky, I thought, for the Son goal, because the Son goal relatively came straight at him.
Yeah.
He got a good hand to it, but he was unlucky in the sense that he was so close to the opposite post that even though he got a good hand on it, the ball still had the entire goal at its disposal, and it went in pretty much the top corner. I mean, he's unlucky in the sense that if he's anywhere a yard closer to the post the ball went in on, he probably saved it.
Yeah.
I mean, which is very good from where it came from. So I was very impressed with him, and fair play to him. Apart from the Liverpool game that they're sure to play at some stage soon enough, I hope he does well this season.
Yeah, he looks
I hope he continues to do well.
Yeah, he started pretty okay. He had a great game, against Spurs, and he had a decent game
debut
against it. Yeah. Which I don't even think he could have foreseen that he could be playing that well. He was probably preparing himself for another relegation battle. And speaking of relegation battles, poor Norwich.
Yes, Norwich are poor.
They're doomed. I have written here, the Derby record could be in jeopardy for the least amount of points in a season.
Still too early to tell, though.
But it's they've played 6, lost 6, and they've minus 14 goal difference.
True.
And every game, like I said, I should just, in this segment here, I should just copy paste what I said last week about them. It's the same problems over and over and over again. It's silly goals given away. It's lack of clinical finishing up front when they do get a chance. But the worrying thing is their goals that they give away are so simple.
Yeah.
They're so simple.
We talked about him last week with Kabak. I mean, to a certain extent, I feel sorry for him for the penalty that he gave away. I think you can see it, that at the point that he's connecting with the player's legs, that he's trying to pull it. He's already trying to pull out of it, but it's too late. It's still a bad challenge. It's still a penalty. I'm not taking away.
Even though the man was in the middle of going down when he got taken out of it,
but he connected with him. He actually kicked him.
So did Suma. It's the exact same as the Ronaldo one last week. I was waiting for this. When I seen the penalty, I was like, I'm going to let him talk about it first, and I'm going to wait till he says it was a penalty, and I'm going to nail him. It was a penalty. And Everton are actually quietly going about their business. Hit
a bit of a blip last week, but other than that, I mean, started the season quite well.
Well, that's them. That's them up in the just right behind the big teams, and like if Rafa can do the job that he did at Newcastle with the players available at Everton, he could get them up there around kind of 5th or 6th, or in the conversation at least for those places.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think everybody could see at Crystal Palace, Townsend was a great player, but he had Crystal Palace players around him.
Yeah.
He has him playing quite well.
Yeah.
He also has Damari Gray, who did very little at Leicester, left Leicester, did even less, got bought by Everton for next to nothing, and all of a sudden, wow, he's getting goals and assists left, right and centre since the start of the season. So
yeah, well, Rafa will be.
It'll be a dangerous Merseyside derby this year.
Oh yeah,
and I mean, I think the how the Merseyside derby goes will determine how well liked Rafa still is on the red side of the Mersey.
I tell you what, if he comes out of 4 points from the 2 Merseyside derbies, I think it'll quickly be forgotten about anything to do with the red side. I think they'll just lap him up. I did want to make mention though, the Everton goalkeeper's jersey. It's just fantastic. It's a real 90s goalkeeper. We're just going to put lines of colour on a black backdrop and we're just going to put it all over the place. I seen it and I thought, that's my next purchase.
And do you know what the funny thing is? I have I have a mention about the Everton goalkeeper and his hairstyle, because I'm not sure, going back to the 90s as well, I'm not sure if you'd ever seen it, but the adaptation of the Mario Brothers that was done back in the 90s, and Dennis Hopper's hairstyle. I think Jordan Pickford he's doing an homage.
Well, to be fair, if you've got little T-Rex hands, it's hard to style your hair.
Oh my, I never even made that connection. That's brilliant. Oh my god. Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so moving on from hairstyles, that's the next podcast we can do. Hairstyles of the rich and famous. Next up, Leeds and West Ham. West Ham getting another good win. Moisey is really building his reputation back up now.
Moyes has found his new Everton.
Yeah, well, I said that last week.
Yeah, or as you said, and arguably better.
A more skillful, like as you were saying with Brentford and Burnley, but they look like a more skillful, more consistent Everton.
Yeah.
Because that's it. Like his Everton teams used to be smash and bash 'em. with the likes of Fellaini and Cahill and all those guys that they used to have up front. But now, like with Antonio, he is turning into a superb centre forward. His pace, strength, his quickness of feet, like he's just really turned into this lethal goal scorer.
Yeah. I mean, the Rafinha goal, very, very good. He's a great player. I think Leeds suffer a wee bit with their lack of composure for finishing, because West Ham did, as good as West Ham have been, West Ham did give up a lot of chances to Leeds.
Yeah.
You know, Click had a couple
in the
of
first half, actually,
chances.
and in the first half, I thought Leeds were
the better team.
Yeah, they were the better team,
100%.
But as in a lot of Leeds games this season, the second half they seemed to trail away an awful lot, and again that happened again. Like it was West Ham on that second half alone deserved to win the game, because they pinned Leeds back, and Leeds had no answer for anything, any of the questions that West Ham posed them. And in the end, 2-1 could have been 3-1, could have been 4-1. Like West Ham were that good in the second half, and I worry for Leeds. I think I said this last week again. A lot of we're touching on the same stuff. Is I worry for them because they seem to have hit that second season slump, where they have this fantastic first season and they just can't maintain it for the second. And I'm not going to say they're going to be in trouble of relegation, because I think they will eventually at some time this season. They will turn it around.
They'll hit a vein of form.
Yeah, but it's just
because their overall play isn't bad. I mean, they're not a Norwich where they might throw up a wee bit of a fight, but end up getting hammered. They're getting hammered while at the same time having quite a good amount of chances themselves in any game. I mean, even the Liverpool game, Liverpool were winning that game 10 times over, but Leeds still had some good chances.
They don't make it easy. The results don't necessarily correlate with their overall performance.
Exactly, yeah.
They don't deserve to be hockeyed in games.
Yeah.
But the only worry I'd have for Leeds is, like I say, I think they will come good. I think they will turn it around. But the only question you have to have for them is, how long will it take? Yeah. And will it be too late by the time they do turn it around? That's their only worry. It's still early days for them. 6 games in, but you'd really like to start putting some points on the board now within the next couple of weeks or so.
Definitely. I mean, even there are five teams, I think, in the league that haven't won a game yet.
Yeah.
You know, that's a strange one in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even the bottom teams usually kind of pull out one.
Well, normally
somewhere.
at this stage, teams start to kind of slowly get together some wins, a win here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's strange. But it's just, I think it's more so, like as we touched on with Norwich, I think they're just that bad, and then I think with the other teams, it's just they're just struggling to get to speed with things.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, I think, will end up turning it around. But for Leeds, I think it could be an up and down sort of time for them. I think this season it could be a bit of a roller coaster. And another team on a roller coaster is Leicester. They just don't seem to be, like I said, that they'd be comfortably 5th in my prediction, and that they could possibly, push for 4th again. The results are a bit all over the place at the minute, and another draw.
I had a wee thought about this the other day. So every season in the last few, they've missed out on Champions League in the last couple of weeks because of the effort levels that were put in the whole season. I think Brendan Rodgers has gone, right lads, first couple of weeks
we're not doing it until October.
Let's just keep the effort levels just slightly down, and then come October, Straight out of the traps.
Well, I suppose, it's normally the last couple of months of the season that they fall down.
Yeah.
So, why not just take the first 2 months to fall down?
Take your foot off the pedal a wee bit.
Yeah. Although Vardy is still banging in goals. Both ends.
Both ends.
But his second goal, if you put into Google Jamie Vardy goal, that's the default setting that'll come up. Ball played through, he runs onto it, rounds the goalkeeper, and from a tight angle just rolls it into the back of the net.
Yeah. Although, what the hell was the keeper doing?
Yeah.
What the? Where was he going? He was going for a walk.
Yeah.
Makes no sense to me.
And Burnley finally got their first open goal from open play this season. And like a bus, you wait for one to come along and two arrive at once. I thought Burnley, they're just Sean Dyche just has them. They're never going to change.
Just ticking
as long
over
as
nicely.
Dyche is there, they're never going to change. They're just going to be that horrible team that when you see them on the fixture list, you go, not Burnley. So they'll never be a top half team, but they'll probably never be relegated under Dyche. They could be a bit like like Charlton were years ago under Kirbishley. They were just nicely in that middle, never going up, never going down, just happy where they are in life. And to be honest, it's from looking at the celebrations of some of the Burnley fans at the game, they seem to be enjoying the way they are.
Definitely. I mean, you look at where they came from to where they are now. Listen, if you're a fixture in the Premier League, and a lot of their fans will know where they were
10, 15 years ago.
I mean, why wouldn't you be happy? They know they're not a Man United who if Man United go through a downturn, where Liverpool, when they went through a downturn, their fans are not happy at all because they know where they should be. Whereas Burnley they're here. This is their height of where they think they should be. If it gets better, they'll just be ecstatic. But if it doesn't get better, they're quite happy with the level that they're at. They love it.
Yeah.
They were, Chris Wood, very unlucky at the end not to get the winner.
It was so much. Although I have to say,
so close.
I much prefer the way offsides are now with VAR. Like the Salah goal for Liverpool. Last year, that's probably offside. It's this thicker line that they talk about. It seems.
Well, no, I don't think the Salah one was that close. Last year it was offside with the lines, but I get your meaning that there are goals that would have been marked off. The Salah one, actually, we never touched on it at the time. That's one of those ones. When you look at it, my first instinct was that it was offside, and when I'm watching football, I'm quite good at, if I see something's offside, I'm looking across the line, and even looking across the line, I don't know what I was looking at, but I still thought it was offside. And then the lines went on the pitch and went, oh yes.
Yeah, no, it's a much better way. It's a much better way of I think doing offsides. It gives the benefit of the doubt to the attacker, kind of the way it's meant to be.
The way they tell us that it was always supposed to be, that it never really was.
Yeah. Well, it's a much better way of doing it. Yeah. I suppose we've talked about a set of fans who are happy with their bit in life, to ones who aren't. Newcastle. Watford and Newcastle. It was an exciting little game.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah.
Newcastle have been involved in a few of those now, to be fair.
Yeah. Although we were talking about St. Maximin before and how good we think he is, and I think you brought up about his crazy legs.
100%.
Well, his crazy legs cost a goal this week. Yeah, he. It's just, I suppose, when you're a player like that, you're going to always take an extra touch. You're going to always. It's going to catch you if you're going to be that deep.
Exactly.
But But again, overall, him going forward, he was...
You live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Yeah, exactly. And like going forward, he's the driving force of Newcastle. I'd worry for them massively now if he ends up getting sold. Like he is their main creative outlet. Kind of like what Sarr is for Watford.
Goodness me, a man rejuvenated.
Yeah, like he after they got relegated a couple of years ago, it looked like he was going to leave. Yeah, and then the big move didn't come through, and he looked like he'd, I don't know, lost confidence in himself, or just that joy had gone. But it seems to be back now. He was superb again. And like with St. Maximum, he seems to be the driving force for Watford going forward. Although that miss at the end from Murphy, oh my!
Make your eyes water.
You run through again, St. Maximum. Beautiful ball, split the Watford defence wide open. You've only got the 74-year-old Ben Foster to beat, and he just chips it at his knees. Not even one of those where he tries to chip it, but it's just not high enough to go over his head. Ben Foster nearly fell over to pick up the ball. And then poor Brucey on the sideline. He wanted just a hole to open up and swallow him at that stage.
Just not having an easy time of it, is he?
Yeah, no. Well, look, he's...
And so far this season, I mean, in fairness to him, the results haven't really been going his way. But from what I've seen of any Newcastle game, any week, whether they've drawn or lost, they've played well. They've been entertaining. And Newcastle fans, I mean, Alan Shearer will talk about it time and time again, and has done for the last couple of seasons when they've been doing quite poorly, is Newcastle fans want to see the team playing well, being entertaining, playing nice football. And at the minute, right, as much as defensively they're still leaking goals, they're still scoring a couple, they're playing well. And the Newcastle fans are still getting... And I think it's now they've gotten to the point where Bruce is just not the man for them, and they're just going to be on his back regardless. But he actually has them playing quite well so far this season.
Well, I think for Bruce, I think he was in a hiding to nothing, replacing Rafa, because they loved Rafa.
Yeah.
And the ironic thing is now that he is starting to get them to play some decent, attractive enough football.
Yeah.
Whereas the Newcastle fans lauded Rafa for practical, kind of systematic football.
And that is only for the simple reason of they were in the frame of mind, they don't know how they got Rafa.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
They had a manager who they knew was beyond them. So it's like, as much as maybe the football wouldn't have been as entertaining, it's let's just keep this guy on the right side and so that he stays. Yeah. Hopefully he stays. And to be fair, he probably would have stayed.
Again, that's down to Mike Ashley really there. Like he would have, and he said before he was happy he didn't want to leave Newcastle. But again, that's how the club is run, and it's run so badly, and it's been run badly for years.
Yeah.
And it'll be the same thing with Newcastle fans all the time. They will get that when the transfer window opens, and you'll probably see this come kind of late December. There'll be word going around that somebody's in to buy Newcastle, and it'll go through the whole of January, and then by the time February comes, it'll have fallen through, and it'll be back to doom and gloom up until about end of April. And then there'll be another supposed Saudi billionaire coming in to have a look. And again, it'll collapse by the time the league comes back. It's a horrible cycle for them now, I have to say. They've been looking to get rid of him for well over the last 10 years anyway, at least. And finally, we've got Southampton and Wolves. And we say "and finally" because
the final game of the weekend is currently about to start in about 10 or 15 minutes, I think. No, just kicked off.
Just
1
kicked
minute
off.
ago.
Yes.
0-0 so far, so they're not top of the table yet.
Yes, well, you never know. By the end of it, Brighton could be the new league leaders. And I, for one, welcome our new overlords.
I'm not sure if we have many people listening that would like the Simpsons or like Simpsons quotes like we do, but every single week Simon has managed to sneak at least one, sometimes two different kind of quotes in. It's laudable the way you're able to do it. It's like second nature.
Well,
don't even have to think about it.
When you spent the better part of 36 years watching the first 10 episodes ad nauseum, you kind of your life doesn't function without them. So Southampton and Wolves, bugger all happened. It was a poor game, but wonderful to see Raul Jimenez back amongst the goals and with a very good goal.
Yeah. Yes, a very good goal. A goal that, what you were saying about Salah earlier on, if that doesn't go in, why that? Just do something easy or just pass the ball. But he did well. He did very, very well. It's not the type of goal you'd think that a man who hasn't scored in almost a year would take on, but he took it very, very well. Sold the defender. I think maybe they thought he was gonna pass it out wide. There's a free man there.
Yeah,
it probably should have happened, and if he didn't score, especially if he didn't score and the game finished 0-0, it would have been, why didn't you score? But no, he took it very, very well.
It was great to see him. It was great to see him get back amongst the goals after such a horrendous, it's such a horrendous injury, and you see him with his protective gear now, his protective headgear, and he'll probably have that. He'll be like Peter Cech. He'll probably have that for. Although, having said that, last week he did feck it onto the ground, so I don't know exactly if he will keep it.
Would you think that affects headers? For a man who's known for heading the ball and doing well with headers, both nodding it on and getting goals from it,
I think I'm not sure if it's the right hand side or the left hand side, but one of the sides look to have a bit of padding. It looks like it's a strap that goes around his head.
Most of it's just a strap
with a padding.
Okay.
And I would have to imagine that it probably wouldn't, except for that. Like, you'd have to imagine that area would cause some problem. Like, it's not a flat surface on his head, So, like, you'd have to imagine that on that area, he might not have full control of a header, or it might,
or as much as he'd want to.
Yeah, exactly. But it was great for him to score a goal.
Oh, definitely. Great to see him back in the goals. He's been unlucky over the last couple of weeks. He's had a couple of chances that
he could have had one last week, and he could have had a couple the week before. So, like, he's been knocking on the door, as they say.
Yeah.
So let's hope for a few more from him. So that's all the weekend's action. As we said, Palace and Brighton have just kicked off. So we will maybe touch on that next week. Chances are we probably won't. But I'm just being honest. No point in promising something that we're not going to deliver on. So we'll be back next week with a roundup of all of next week's games.
Some of the Champions League action as well, if there's any decent highlights.
It depends what the score is with Villarreal and United. I might just.
You'd imagine it'd be 0-0.
Yeah. Well, I ignored the young boys' game, so. Liverpool with a big game next week.
Yeah,
against Man City. So that will obviously take our main focus for next week. But there's still some good games around, and we'll be here to ramble on about each and every one of them and the stupid things that we've seen in each game. So I think that's all. I think that's everything now. So everything's wrapped up in a neat little package.
And there it is again.
Oh, I was being serious. Sorry if it sounded sarcastic.